Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming here today for this very important groundbreaking event for Gardner's brand new elementary school. Before we begin, I would like to recognize a couple of the officials that we have here with us today. Behind me, we have our City Council President, Elizabeth Kaczynskis. Also joined with her from the City Council, we have Councilor Nate Boudreau, Councilor George Tyros, Judy Mack, Alexander Dernalowitz, Ron Cormier, and Jim Boone. Also behind me, we have our Vice Chair of our school committee, Jennifer Palavin, and joined with her, our school committee members, Bob Schwartz, Rachel Cormier, and Ann Hurst. We also have our State Senator, Dean Tran, and our State Representative, Jonathan Zlotnick, with us here today, as well as several other members of our local community here to celebrate this new achievement for us here as a community. When thinking about what I was going to say to start off today's event, I wanted to think about what Gardner Public Schools has been here in Gardner for quite some time. So I did the thing that most people do if you've been around Gardner for a while, and I called up Mike Richard. And those of you who know Mike Richard know he's a wealth of just Gardner knowledge and Gardner history going back to as far as you can think of. And this is what we were able to find. This is Gardner's first elementary school that was built as an elementary school in over 100 years. And remember that number 100. The schools that we currently use in the city, Helen May Sauter was constructed in 1899 to serve as Gardner High School. Elm Street School was constructed in 1927 to serve as Gardner High School. Waterford Street School was built to be Gardner Middle School in 1953. When they were built, Gardner Middle School was built in 1997 to house grades 7 and 8. Gardner High School was built in 1976 as a high school. Waterford Street School became known as the Consolidated School when it was constructed in 1953 because it was the first junior high to have students from all around the city go to the same school. Prospect Street School was constructed in 1923. That was the last school that the city built as an elementary school. Prior to that, the previous Prospect Street School was also constructed as an elementary school in 1887. So it's about time that we build something that's meant to serve the purpose that it was built for. Our elementary school students are just starting out on their careers as Gardnerites, learning how to live in a community, learning how to give back to the community. Our teachers teach more than just writing, reading, and arithmetic. They also teach sharing. They also teach how to behave. They teach how to interact with each other, how to be polite. So, as I said in my inaugural address a couple months ago, our schools don't just teach the subjects that you see on a class schedule. They help make a permanent impact on the lives of all of the younger generations that we have here in Gardner on a daily basis that'll stay with them forever and will impact this community forever. So as we begin, I want to say from the bottom of my heart a very special thank you to our teachers, our principals, our educators, guidance counselors, and everyone else in our school district, many of whom are here today, so that we can make that impact and keep Gardner moving in the future. So please join me in a round of applause for all of them. I also think it's appropriate that we remember that today is Veterans Day. As due to the current COVID-19 restrictions, we were unable to make this a full, open to the public event because of the amount of people that can gather in one place at one time currently. But also with the regulations is we can't do a group singing event. So we were unable to get someone to sing the national anthem here because we wanted to make sure we complied with those regulations. However, if you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance in honor of all our veterans who have served our nation here on Veterans Day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We have a great program here scheduled today. I'll be back up here later on to give little tidbits of fun facts in between. But I want to make sure that we get to recognizing all of our community partners that are here, because this is really a community event that would be impossible for us to be here today if it wasn't for the teamwork that many people have put into this event. I do want to especially recognize the members of the board of directors of the Gardner Boys and Girls Club who we have here today. They have been an integral part in keeping our students motivated throughout the pandemic, getting our students active after school prior to the pandemic. And one of the things that we celebrate today, not only the fact that we're getting a brand new elementary school, but also that through this elementary school, we're able to work with the Boys and Girls Club to create a new community center to house that very important organization, so that we have a place for our students to go after school, so that their learning and their experiences don't just end here, but continue after school, and they continue to grow as a person. So thank you very much to everyone from that organization as well. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you all our first speaker for today's event. A graduate of the University of Massachusetts Amherst, Council President Elizabeth Kaczynskis was first elected to the City Council from Ward 2 in 2018. Prior to being elected as a city councilor, she worked as the executive aide under the previous administration under Mayor Mark Hawke. In some ways, I feel like I'm following her. After she was the executive aide, I was hired as the executive aide. And during the previous months of this year, she led this city through the pandemic as the first person in this city's history to be called Madam Mayor. She's been a constant friend of mine and a great source of pride for this community, and someone who truly cares and bleeds orange and black. Please join me in welcoming our City Council President, Elizabeth Kaczynskis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for inviting us here today. It is an honor for the City Council to be part of today's groundbreaking ceremony for Gardner Elementary School. I'd like to recognize the City Councilors who are present: Councilor Ron Cormier, Councilor Boone, Councilor Tyros, Councilor Mack, Councilor Boudreau, and Councilor Dernalowitz. The current Gardner High School building opened in 1976, still referred to by many as the new Gardner High School, while the old Gardner High School was repurposed to serve elementary school students. Gardner Middle School opened in 1997, of which I was a member of its first 8th grade class, and introduced to the city what was referred to at the time as the middle school concept, while Gardner Junior High School was repurposed to again serve elementary school students. Gardner Elementary School will open in 2022 with its purpose being to serve all of our elementary school students in Gardner. It will be their school built to fit their needs, giving them the attention and opportunity they deserve to reach their academic, social, and scholastic goals and thrive as Gardner Public Schools students. Gardner Elementary School is a new beginning for our city and literal beginning for our elementary students. Today is the first day of this exciting and refreshing beginning for our students and for our community. The work of the City Council includes ensuring sound and solid investments for our city. This project accomplishes just that. With the construction of Gardner Elementary School, there is a strong potential for new families to be attracted to Gardner, where they have an opportunity to give their children a quality education, beginning in a brand new state-of-the-art facility that offers the resources needed for their success. By investing in Gardner Elementary School, we are investing in ourselves by offering the incentive to our students and families to begin and remain in Gardner from pre-K through 12th grade. Keeping Gardner students in Gardner maintains sustainable tax revenue as families stay in the city and does not cost the city school choice out dollars or loss of tax revenue from families leaving Gardner. A new school also opens up the doors for more students from outside communities to school choice into Gardner Public Schools, further generating revenue for our school department. These are just 3 sound and solid examples of the potential benefits from the investment of Gardner Elementary School. On behalf of the Gardner City Council, thank you to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for partnering with the City of Gardner to support the cost-effective design and construction of Gardner Elementary School. Thank you to former Mayor Mark Hawke, Dr. Stephen Heman and the School Building Committee, Gardner Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Pellegrino and our school department, the Gardner School Committee, Mayor Michael Nicholson, Jones Whitsitt, and Colliers Incorporated for working together diligently on this project. And finally, thank you to the citizens of Gardner for putting your confidence in all of us to responsibly and reasonably support this project in the best interest of the City of Gardner. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Our next speaker today is our Vice Chair of our school committee, Jennifer Palavin. Attorney Palavin is a graduate of Suffolk University Law School. First elected to the school committee in 2016, she was then selected by the school committee to serve as their vice chair in 2019. Aside from being on our school committee and serving as a child advocate in the juvenile court, she is also a proud mother of 2 students here in Gardner Public Schools and has a true dedication for where Gardner Schools is headed and the progress that we make here as a community. Please join me in welcoming the Vice Chair of the School Committee, Attorney Jennifer Palavin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nicholson. I'm probably going to echo a lot of what Councilor Kaczynskis already said, because I think we're all on the same page when it comes to this. Today marks an important milestone for this project on our way to our first true elementary school building in 100 years. It is difficult to describe in words what a difference a building can make for education. However, the simple fact that we have properly sized classrooms that will provide the space necessary to allow early childhood and elementary teaching staff the ability to structure their rooms and therefore their lesson plans to fit current education methods will have an enormous impact. Within those rooms, everything will be designed for the age group that will occupy the classroom and be sized appropriate and welcoming. It will be an environment that children feel comfortable in and that will help promote their growth. On top of that, this building will not just be a school, as it will provide opportunity to the community with spaces that can be utilized. This building will help to attract young families to the City of Gardner looking for a home in a city that cares about their students. It is a great addition to this city, which already offers so much to its citizens that other communities don't have. I want to thank everyone who has been a part of this process, whether volunteering on the school building committee or being a part of the numerous meetings and presentations we have had to help the design of this building. I also want to thank the MSBA for their work and contribution to this project, which we would not be here today without. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Attorney Palavin. As I said earlier, over the course of today's events, we'll be giving little snippets of information with regard to this new building that we have here. As I said in the beginning, this is the first elementary school that Gardner has built to serve as an elementary school in 100 years. Well, I also think it's worth pointing out that when this new elementary school opens to our students in the fall of 2022, spring 2023 school year, that will be Gardner's 100th year as a city form of government. And I think it's a testament to where we're moving as a city that we celebrate that milestone by giving the future generation of Gardnerites that much more of a step forward in having a quality education that they deserve as residents of this city to help them in their futures. So thank you very much to all of you whose vision got us here today, some of which we'll hear from later on. Our next speaker for today's event is our state senator for the Worcester Middlesex District, Senator Dean Tran. Senator Tran was born in Saigon, Vietnam, and emigrated to the United States at the age of 4. A graduate of Brandeis University, he served as a Fitchburg city councilor for 12 years prior to being elected in the special state Senate election in 2017. He was the first Vietnamese American to serve in the state Senate here in Massachusetts. And aside from his role as a state senator, he serves on the executive board for the Boy Scouts of America, the corporate board for Central Massachusetts YMCS, and previously served on the Board of Trustees for Mount Wachusett Community College. Please join me in welcoming Senator Tran to the podium. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Nicholson. Given the weather, I'm going to be very brief. I just want to say that, early childhood and secondary, especially elementary education, is so important to our economy and our future. And it is so wonderful to see that the state continues to invest in our children. With that being said, I want to say thank you very much to all my colleagues up in the State House, especially as Representative Zlotnick, who I know have been a champion in terms of getting funding for our children. And also I would like to say congratulations to our former Mayor Hawke, who was a tremendous asset to the city of Gardner, as well as Mayor Nicholson, and to the whole entire city of Gardner. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It's now my privilege to invite Representative Jonathan Zlotnick to the podium. A graduate of the University of Massachusetts Lowell, he was first elected to the House of Representatives at 21 years old in 2012. He currently serves on the House Committee for Global Warming and Climate Change, the House Committee on Technology and Intergovernmental Affairs, the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure, and most importantly here today, the Joint Committee on Education. He has been an integral part in helping us through this process and helping us obtain the funding from the state to be able to get to where we are today. Please join me in welcoming State Representative Jonathan Zlotnick. Thank you.
We're beating the rain here, so I'm going to be quick. It's been mentioned a couple times about this is going to be the first purpose-built elementary school in 100 years in the city of Gardner, but I want to elaborate on why it's so important. Think about the difference in space needs between teenagers and 7-year-olds. The design of the bathrooms, the design of the cafeterias, the design of the individual classrooms, and the space needs from when you're talking about educating elementary school students to talking about educating high school students. Those space needs matter. They matter to the education, they matter to the quality of that education, and to the quality of life for the teachers and staff and students, most importantly, who use those buildings. It's more than just the 4 walls and a roof that make a school, and that's even more important when you're talking about younger students. I also want to take a minute to elaborate on the contributions of an organization and individual to this project. It's been mentioned a few times, the school building committee, but I think the individuals on that committee really need to be commended for all of the work they do on projects like this. It's a group of elected officials and community members, people from the school department, who for years now have been meeting long hours, going over mountains of data, evaluating contractors, evaluating plans, going over building specs, evaluating different locations. The list goes on and on. All that they are responsible for and all of the individual tiny decisions they make along the way to make sure that this is successful and a good return on our investment. So I think that school building committee really deserves a special round of applause. And then an individual who I want to make sure that we recognize as we break ground on this project is someone who has been really integral to all of this and has brought a wealth of knowledge to the way that schools get built in Massachusetts and through the Massachusetts School Building Authority. He's been someone, he was brought in right at the beginning of this project, and I can say that his experience has truly been invaluable. He has been advising all of us continually along the way. He he was the one who would, he'd call me up and say, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to say this. You got to do that. You got to call this one. You got to make sure that goes right. And I can't say enough how important he and that advice has been to this project. His experience goes back probably, I bet, dozens of school buildings he has been involved with in that time. And for all of us who obviously don't have that level of experience, it really, truly has been invaluable. And I want to make sure that we recognize Steve Heman for his contributions as a consultant on this project. So that's all I'll say, and I'll just conclude by saying that I think that Gardner is very much headed in the right direction. I think this project is going to be a true tentpole for our community, and I'm really happy to have been a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Our next guest is someone who is very important for today, because also, as has been said before, we wouldn't be here without the help of the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Mr. Jack McCarthy, Executive Director of the School Building Authority, is a graduate of Boston College and Suffolk University Law School. Prior to serving as the Executive Director for the Massachusetts School Building Authority, he served as a Deputy Chief for the Norfolk County Sheriff's Department, the Chief of Staff for the Secretary of the Commonwealth's Office, the Senior Assistant Inspector General from 2003 to 2011, and on the local level, so he understands how things work here for us in local government, the Town Moderator for the town of Norwood. Please join me in welcoming Attorney Jack McCarthy, Executive Director of the Massachusetts School Building Authority, here today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of Treasurer Goldberg, who's the chair of the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and the rest of the staff, thank you so much for allowing us to be here. You know, the mission of the Massachusetts School Building Authority is to partner with communities to support the design and construction of educationally appropriate, flexible, sustainable, and cost-effective public school facilities. And this project certainly meets that ideal. Benjamin Franklin once said, "An investment in education pays the best interest." And we at the MSBA are proud to be your investing partners to the tune of approximately $49 million. But you know, your legislative delegation was just up here, and I have to say that sometimes they go unnoticed in these projects, but let me tell you, both of these gentlemen were on this project from day one. Well, not quite day one, because I don't think they were around when we met Mark way back in, I don't know, 2014, 15, and Mark made the case, and he, you know, I told him, you know, we really just get the most urgent and needy, and those are the buildings that we select for our pipeline, and he insisted I come out, which I did, and we toured the buildings, and he was very hands-on, and he made the case. So I want to echo that your leadership on this project, you can't really state it fully how important it was, Mark, so thank you. And Representative, I've known Steve Heman for a long, long time. The mayor mentioned that I was the town moderator in Norwood, and when I was town moderator, Steve was the business, is it business agent, business, whatever it was, for the business administrator for the Norwood Public Schools. So, and he'll tell you, I bailed him out a lot of times as moderator, but your words did not surprise me. I know that, Steve Heman. So, I want to congratulate the building committee as well. You guys did a great job of selecting your consultants. You know, Collier's, Jones Whitsitt, and Beacon Construction. I expect this to be on time and on budget. And why? Because that's what those people have done for us all over the Commonwealth. So good job in selecting the folks to help lead your project. So once again, give yourselves a round of applause for your own leadership. And we don't just, you know, hand over money. We support you all the way through. The people that are going to be helping you from here on Jana Peklis and Sarah Presbolowitz from our office, and they'll be at your meetings all the time, and you'll grow to love them as much as you love Steve Heman. I can guarantee that. And I just want to close. There's a quote that sort of tells how we at the MSBA feel about what we do. And Dan Valentine was a reporter for the Salt Lake City Tribune. And he once described a school as a building of 4 walls with tomorrow inside. And we at the MSBA are proud to be part of Gardner's Tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Can we get another round of applause for Director McCarthy? $49 million to help this project. Now, some of you might be wondering why we're in the middle of the field hockey field here today, sitting for the groundbreaking. The school itself is actually going to be located across the street from Dunn Park on Pearl Street. And if you go down in the back corner over there, there's actually a map where you'll be able to see how it'll be laid out. However, if you have a program, you'll see on the front of the program 100 Wildcat Way. Well, Wildcat Way is the ceremonial name, if you will, of the driveway that connects the new elementary school with this over here so that we can have that educational complex. And Wildcat Way is actually that pile of dirt that you see right over there. But we moved it to the corner so that if people were driving down Catherine Street, you knew where the event was happening. So we are very excited to see this go forward. Again, that 100 because it's been 100 years since we built an elementary school, and it'll be the city's 100th year then. But we can't talk about Gardner Public Schools without talking about the person who's helped steer that ship every day. And that's our Superintendent of Schools, Mark Pellegrino. Mark Pellegrino is no stranger to Gardner Public Schools. Prior to serving as superintendent, he was the Dean of Students at Gardner Middle School from 2005 to 2006. He also served as principal of the Gardner Academy for Learning and Technology in 2011, and in 2013 was hired as the principal of Gardner High School. Aside from his experience here in Gardner High School, he also served as the assistant principal and director of guidance for Quabbin Regional High School, a guidance counselor for Ralph C. Mahar High School, the associate director of career services at Clark University, was hired as our superintendent in 2016, and we can now call him, now that he's completed his degree at Boston College, Dr. Pellegrino. Please help me in welcoming our superintendent, Dr. Pellegrino, up to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm excited to be here. This is a great day. And I have to say, when I think of public speaking engagements, the first thing they say to not do is to start off negatively. But I have to say, this has been one heck of a year. It's been a difficult year. I know a lot of people say hindsight is 20/20. Well, frankly, I can't wait until 2020 is hindsight. This has been a really tough year. We just got over a very difficult election. We have civil unrest due to racial inequities in our country, not to mention a small global pandemic that has now turned us on our heads in every aspect of our lives. But today's pretty special. Today is that bright spot in 2020. Today is a day that we can not only celebrate our veterans, but we can also look to our leaders in Gardner, as well as the community of Gardner, where we got behind the idea of doing what's right for the children of Gardner by building a new school. This new school will facilitate education, and I have to say, I have great staff. I have wonderful teachers, counselors, paraprofessionals, registered behavioral technicians. They're all great, they're wonderful, but they've been doing this in some schools that have been very challenging. They've created some serious challenges when it comes to teaching. And I'm looking forward to having a school that will allow us to have technology that's just embedded in every day of what we do. So not only when we shut down schools, if another global pandemic happens, that kids will still be able to continue their education, but if Johnny's sick and has to stay home, we'll make sure that we can still bring the education to Johnny when that happens. We'll have an HVAC system that Wayne Anderson won't have to go through every single room to fix. Instead, we'll have a state-of-the-art HVAC system that will make sure that we're doing everything we can to make our schools safe and absolutely wonderful. I'm really excited about this new school, and I think this school will serve generations to come. And when those generations are enjoying the wonderful education that they're receiving in that school, they're going to look back and they're going to see that the leaders of today and the community of today had foresight. Foresight for the kids of Gardner, foresight for the community of Gardner. And I'm thrilled to be a part of this. This has been a long time coming. I think back in 2014 is when this all started. Mayor Hawke at the time got the ball rolling for us, and now it's continued. Every step of the way, this has been a lot of work. And so it's my job to make sure that we recognize the people on our Gardner New School Building Committee. So I'd like to recognize our Mayor Mike Nicholson, Director of Buildings and Facilities Wayne Anderson, Principal of Elm Street School Dave Fredette, and Principal of Waterford Street School Earl Martin. Our Chief Academic Officer Catherine Gogan, Special Education Director Joyce West, our school committee members on the team, Jennifer Palavin and Robert Schwartz, City Councilor Ron Cormier, who's been a cheerleader since day one for this, our Waterford Street School teacher representative Christina Thomas, Elm Street School teacher representative Ashley Chickwin, and our engineering experience brought to the team with Robert Hankinson and Heidi Jandris, our police chief Richard Brax, our business administrator for Gardner Public Schools April Yu, the city's treasurer Jen Dimick, and our purchasing agent Josh Cormier, and of course executive secretary to the mayor's office Rachel Stefano, and my own secretary Brenda Smith. And I have to echo Representative John, oh my God, John Zlotnick. I have to recognize the words that he said about Steve Heman. Steve Heman has been on my mind since I took over as superintendent day one. And frankly, he's dotted every I, crossed every T, and anyone who knows him knows that he's double dotted those I's and double crossed some T's because he just wants to make sure. And this project would not be here if it weren't for him. And additionally, I want to thank Representative Zlotnick for his words that put us over the edge at the MSBA meeting when they asked us why this school, and he explained that so many of our little boys had to step up on wooden stools to step in front of a urinal. I think that put us over the edge, and I thank you for that quote. So with that said, I thank you all, and I thank the city of Gardner and all the leaders of today who make this possible. Thank you.
Now, it's been said multiple times today that we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the vision of a certain individual who is our next guest speaker. Former Mayor Mark Hawke began his career within the city of Gardner in the Department of Community Development and Planning. And if he didn't make a big enough mark on the city through his work and the projects he oversaw in that role, he was elected mayor and took office in 2008. Under his tenure as mayor, the investments made in our school department, despite going through the Great Recession, are countless. To name a few, we got new windows at Elm Street School, a new roof at the middle school. Gardner High School got brand new science labs and boilers. If you look behind you, there's a beautiful brand new athletic complex for our students to grow outside the classroom and grow on the athletic field and use that other section of their brains to just get out and express themselves and be active. And he is the first mayor in Gardner's history to ever submit a budget to the city council that put the city over minimum net school spending to invest in our students. We would not be here today if it wasn't for his vision. When I was hired as the executive aide in his office in 2016, I remember coming back from my part-time master's program at UMass Amherst, and one of the first things we did was we went out to the MSBA meeting in Boston to be entered into phase 1 of the project. And here we are today entering phase 7. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him, so please join me in welcoming my great friend, mentor, and colleague, former Mayor Mark Hawke.
aware of that. Good afternoon. It's all been said, but not everyone has said it, so I will not be brief. So a lot has been made about a few of the things that I've done for the city, and I do have to say that if I've seen further, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. And that's actually what Isaac Newton said. And everything that I've done has been by a team approach. Many of the team is sitting in front of me, and two of the team I hired, which I couldn't keep a job and they left, are sitting behind me. So obviously I have a pretty good track record of hiring people. Good job, good job. But just to give you a little more of a background about how we came to be here today, I see former Chief Neil Erickson in the back. When I first got elected way back a long time ago, Neil brought me over to the police station. I had no idea what a sally port was. Well, long story short, I eventually learned what a sally port was, what it did, and the shortcomings, if you will, of our current facility. Well, we now have a new police station in the city of Gardner. A lot of what we see around us, we accept. I grew up in Gardner. I love Gardner. I'm still living in Gardner, and I probably always will be in Gardner. But we have to look beyond. A long time ago, someone said Gardner's a hamburger town. That's all we'll ever be. I choose not to believe that. I think we are so much more. We are capable of so much more, and we are achieving so much more because of everyone around us here today. So some of those giants that we didn't mention that I've been standing on their shoulders and taking all their credit, I'll go back to Dr. Carol Daring, who was the superintendent when I first got elected, who really started getting this ball rolling and showing me around the schools. But at the time, we couldn't afford much. We couldn't afford to pay attention because we had to get our financial house in order. So then we thank former auditor Calvin Brooks and former treasurer collector Charlene Daigle for working with me to get our financial house in order. We had Superintendent Denise Clemens come in, who saw that splitting third grade was probably not the best thing for the third graders, and put them under one roof, which really started us down this path that Superintendent Daring started that ball rolling on. And then we did a great thing in hiring Superintendent Pellegrino, who kept that ball rolling. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention Jack McCarthy, who I bugged for approximately a decade, because I think that first report was somewhere around 2009. And then every time I would see Jack, I'd remind him about Gardner, and he'd come out and we'd talk and we'd show him around, and he's like, well, you just got to do this, and helped us along to get to that next step until we are $49 million later here today with Jack and the MSBA. So thank you very much, Jack. Westminster doesn't need anything right now, but I still have your number. And one other person that I should really mention is my son, who is obviously not here today. But every school building that he went into, I eventually went into, and in other areas that I would not necessarily go into as mayor. And I saw what Waterford Street School was. I went to Waterford Street School. It was my junior high school. I saw what Waterford Street School was, and I said, we can't have this. So we started working with Dr. Daring and business administrator Chris Casban at the time. Then he went on to Elm Street School. And again, Mayor Nicholson made a comment about all the changes that we've seen in all these schools. One of the things we worked with Mr. Fredette, Principal Fredette, on was I went into the auditorium to see one of his plays when he was at Elm Street School. Half the seats were broken. All the seats are working. At least they were when I left. I don't know what Dave did after I left. But we fixed those seats from 1920, whatever. So my son is really the reason why you see all this. Every school that he's been to has been improved after he's left, with the possible exception of Gardner High School, because that field is beautiful and I love looking at. Thank you, Mayor Nicholson, for mentioning that. And I will leave you this one thought. I'm sure that this will be done before my son leaves the Gardner Middle School, but I fully expect to see new lockers at the Gardner Middle School, because you cannot even fit a textbook in those lockers now, never mind a sandwich. So that is coming up next, thanks to the superintendent. So again, this is a great day for the city of Gardner, young and old, because this will pay dividends for decades and decades to come. Thank you all for being here.
Now we're getting towards the end here, but as a great former boss once told me, so long as you're at the microphone and you're the one who's emceeing the program, you can go off script as much as you want, especially when someone else gave you the outline for the script and you want to say a special thank you to them. Mr. McCarthy, can you come back here, please? Jen, can you join me with this one? So one of my roles as mayor is I serve as the chair of the Gardner School Committee. And on behalf of myself, Vice Chair Palavin, and all the other members of the Gardner School Committee here who are with us, we want to say a special thank you for this investment that you've made in our community. And what's the better way of saying thank you in the middle of a pandemic than with your own Gardner Public Schools Wildcat face mask that you can take back to Boston with you. So thank you very much, Director McCarthy.
Thank you.
Let me put mine on here real quick. Colin, can you come up here? Good. And we'll just get a picture.
Let me get it out of the bag.
There we go.
Is it upside down?
No, it's good. Beautiful. Gardner News right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's under $50 too, so that's
Oh, yeah. And then there's a name that many people have mentioned today, who many of you in the audience may not actually know, and that's Dr. Stephen Heman. A resident of Westminster, he's worked in education for over 40 years. He was the superintendent of schools for Narragansett Regional School District from 2000 to 2008, assistant superintendent of schools and business administrator for Norwood Public Schools, and he also has experience as an assistant principal and teacher in many different grades and schools. He was the site coordinator of the Hampshire Educational Collaborative at Fitchburg State College, a graduate of Norwood High School. He attained his bachelor's degree in biology and math, and from Southern Florida College in 1970, a master's in education from Boston University, a master's in business administration from the University of Vermont, and a doctorate in education in leadership from the University of Massachusetts at Lowell. Representative Zlotnick, I made sure to mention that was Lowell, not Amherst. He also served as the interim superintendent for Somerset Berkeley School District and currently serves on the personnel board for the town of Westminster. We really would not be here today if it wasn't for the guidance and help this individual has done for us. And while we're only at the groundbreaking and there's much more to celebrate and much more to do to get to when we finally can walk through the doors, Dr. Heman, can you please come up here? On behalf of the City of Gardner, the City Council, the School Committee, and myself, we want to present you with the typical show of appreciation that we give out here in the city, and that's a seat to the city, a little version of the big chair. This is something I tried to carry over in Rutland when I went there, but it just doesn't sit as well as the little chairs do we have here. But also, like we said, this isn't where the actual elementary school is going to be, and we wanted to make sure that you had something to take with you after we have the new school here. So this morning, Officer Lawrence, if you got any calls at the police station that the mayor was walking down Pearl Street with a shovel, we have a little bit of dirt from the actual location for the elementary school. I went out and hiked there and got you a little bit for that official groundbreaking over there. So thank you very much for your guidance and help over the past couple years, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future. Thank you.
This is really nice. Thank you. Here we go, Lonnie.